shops with, like, napkins and stuff, and wrote, like, 4 lines, took it to the piano, set the 4 lines to a tune, and then that would kind of suggest where it wants to go next, and then wrote the music and lyrics together.
There's a question up there.
Is that the question?
Well, it answered part of it, but yeah. Well, it's mostly like.
This is 3 questions now.
It's mostly that, like, I find myself getting stuck all the time because, like I said, I can't write music. I don't have any. I haven't found anybody who can help me to write it. Which obviously, if you can't write music, then why should you try? You can't. But
not necessarily. Bob Merrill, who wrote Funny Girl, played everything on the xylophone. I mean, so I've heard. I never met him. But he did it intentionally too, because he thought if you can't play it on a xylophone, it's too complicated. Does anyone know the whole story? No. That's what I've always heard. If you can't play it on a little toy xylophone, it's too complicated. Interesting.
No one told Sondheim. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, this was my first time seeing the show. It was awesome. Congratulations to you guys. I have a question for Jeff, though. I'm sure it was tricky writing Everyone's a Little Bit Racist, trying to toe the line between like hilarious and edgy and getting shut down. How many drafts did you guys go through?
Not a whole lot. I mean, but we did cross the line too far, and that's why it was helpful. We wrote it in this workshop, this class, with other writers who, when we finished a song, would raise their hand and give us feedback, and also give us feedback as it was going. You could kind of tell when there were real laughs and when there weren't. And we wrote the racist. We wrote a racist verse for Gary Coleman. It was like about burning crosses, like everybody. And it was like, everybody's racist. Not everybody burns crosses. Or everybody gets a turn. We've each got our cross to burn. Like everybody's racist about something. Everybody's burning some kind of cross somewhere because we're all a little bit racist because of what we were brought up with or whatever. I don't know. So we found that was too far.
Yes.
I know the story went through some changes, but as far as the ending of the last song that you were talking about For Now, where everything was just impermanent, which I think described as a bittersweet ending. At what point did you know you wanted the show to end that way, and did you have any other ideas for what conclusion the story could possibly come to?
We knew we didn't want to wrap it up with, boy gets girl. And I love that, he earns her, he puts, down at her feet, and he says, will you take me back? And she says, well, I'll be so busy, I don't know. I got her to school. I was like, well, there's going to be an awful lot of work to do on it. Got to hire teachers. I don't know, we wanted to reflect real life, which is a lot of babies.
Yes.
Yeah, just wondering, our first time singing Good Thank You was super fun. Has there been much pushback in other parts of the country, like intolerance, people just really hating the show? Have you gotten any experience of people really not going with it?
We've never had protests or anything. I mean, there's always people, because in New York, it gets all the tourists from everywhere. There's once in a while there's walkouts. And actually, and somebody got mad at one of our actors when on Broadway. There's a season where they stand outside with buckets collecting money for Equity Fights AIDS. John Tartaglia, I think it was when they were saying George Bush is only for now. Somebody really let him have it and said, I have a son who's in the on the armed forces. It's disrespectful, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself, and it ruined the whole evening for me. But usually the people that walk out are Republicans. So. Well, the key was that it wasn't a big thing. I always marvel that the things lasted 10 years and been all over the world and stuff. But if we were trying, and been on Broadway, won a Tony, running all over the world kind of musical, it probably wouldn't have used puppets, had songs about racism and coming out of the closet, and had Gary Coleman as a character. Like, we weren't aiming for this. It would have been very kind of, I don't know, more narrow and boring, and probably wouldn't have worked. So I think only because it was Renegade, it was us trying to do a little off-Broadway show. I mean, and keeping, you know, our standards as high as we could, but we wouldn't have taken such risks, probably. I mean, we probably wouldn't have written The Internet is for Porn for a Broadway stage, right? But, so they opened it off Broadway, got all this attention. The New York, you know, a pivotal moment was the New York Times came to review it, and in their review, Ben Brantley loved it and compared it to West Side Story. And then, people wanted to come see it, and they needed a bigger theater. And our producers came to us one night and said, you know, there's lines out the door, and we think it, you know, there's really demand for it. People are loving it. People want to see it. We think it needs a bigger theater, so we're going to move it to Broadway. and seriously, in a room like, you know, like with this many people, time slowed down, and everybody's jaws just went. We're going to Broadway? And it did.
But the Raymond Engel Workshop is like basically a Broadway composer-writer school. And there's something out here that you should look into called the Academy for New Musical Theater, which is essentially the West Coast version of the BMI Raymond Engel Workshop. And so again, that was a study. They put a lot of very dynamically creative people together, and you and Bobby had a passion for the Muppets, and that's sort of how it started.
It wasn't so much a passion as much as
Mutual affinity.
Well, I mean,
You didn't hate it.
no. I mean, we were in a class to write a musical, and we thought, like, seriously, how come people who love musicals, but most people don't? Like, most people don't love musicals the way we do. We thought, well, where is it that we're losing them? Like, musicals were something that, like, you know, it's something that Saturday Night Live makes fun of, and you know that it's a joke. Like, don't sing, please. So, and I mean, people made fun of musicals, so we figured, whatever kind of musical we write, musical fans will come see it. But if you can write something that has a broader appeal, like the people who go see Les Mis and Phantom, you know, like see a show once every 2 or 3 years on a special occasion, something that they would want to see, not having to love musicals, well, then you've got something. So we thought, what kind of musical could we write that's not just for people that love musicals? We thought, well, animation, puppets, like the Muppets, you know, when Ernie and Kermit the Frog start singing, it's endearing to everyone. When Hugh Jackman starts singing, not so endearing. Seriously.
Well, certainly more endearing than Russell Crowe. I'm just checking those two women didn't have the Tony, right? Okay. Yes.
Can you speak more to, I think it's kind of sadly fascinating that earlier you said that here you are a Tony Award winner, and yet there's a new project you're working on, and you can't get it off the ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
My God.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah, well, it was about Prop 8. I mean, I went to meet these producers who made the movie Step Monster. Is it Step Monster with, what's her name from 9?
Monsters Fall.
No.
Jane Fonda.
It's with Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
Step Monster. They wanted to make
Monster-in-Law.
Monster-in-Law.
That's why you're
So I don't know, but I had a manager at the time who gave me really good advice. Like I didn't want to go meet with anybody about Monster-in-Law musical. But he said, meet with everybody that wants to meet with you because you never know. You know, one thing may lead to another, and that project will probably never happen anyway. But go meet people and start, you know, talking about something you do want to do.